This and more. I'm joined by Senator Tim Kaine, a member of the Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committees. Senator, thank you very much. First
Absolutely,
of all,
Andrea.
How significant is it that Russia is now going after ISIS head on? You know, we had been questioning whether they were really going after ISIS, whether their bomb raids were against anti-Assad groups that are supported by the U.S. and others, but now they are really taking on ISIS.
Andrea, I think it's very significant, and it is possible. We don't have a lot of overlap with Russia in the way we look at the world, but they now understand in a deep way the depravity of ISIL, and they are now taking big steps to try to counter ISIL. And the more nations we have that see this threat and will act against it, the stronger we'll be in the battle.
And, Senator, you've been one of the leaders calling for a congressional authorization. Initially, the White House was reluctant. Then the White House did propose one, but Congress has been unwilling, refusing to vote on this.
Right.
Democrats as well as Republicans not want to be put on the record. It's been 2001, or after 9/11, 2002, when we had the last congressional authorization.
Right.
Isn't this a war? Doesn't it require congressional approval?
Absolutely, Andrea. This has been a war since August 8, 2014, when the president started the bombing campaign against ISIL, and there really isn't any current statutory or treaty legal authority for the war. Congress has the responsibility under Article 1 to declare war, and frankly, members of Congress, both parties, both houses, have wanted to criticize the president, but not vote to authorize the war or stop the war or refine what the president is doing. But I think the events of last week, the downing of the Russian airliner, the attack in Beirut, the horrific attacks in Paris, and now claims that ISIL wants to do attacks in other cities, including Washington. Congress may want to hide from this, but Congress can't hide. ISIL's not going away, and I think it is time, and you see a growing willingness and understanding in Congress that we've got to be more engaged.
A couple of quick points. I was talking to your colleague Dianne Feinstein yesterday, and she said she's never been as worried in looking at the intelligence since 9/11 as she is today. At the same time, Jack Brennan, the CIA director, is blaming a lot of this on the dark side and on the problems on surveillance. He believes, tying intelligence hands. But a broad acknowledgement from all of my sources that we had no idea that ISIS had this capacity. The airliner, Beirut, Paris,
right.
The external threats. Yet John Kerry today told my colleague Lester Holt in Paris, and we're going to play more of that and talk to Lester in a bit, that we knew this all along, that this was not unexpected. There's a real disconnect here somewhere. Who's right, who's wrong?
Well, Andrea, there is a disconnect. Look, while I blame Congress for not authorizing the war against ISIL and feel we need to, I don't think the administration has done a good job of laying out a clear strategy that encompasses the three elements that have to be put together. There is the war against ISIL. There is the ongoing civil war in Syria because of the atrocities of Bashar al-Assad. And there's the worst humanitarian crisis since World War II with the fleeing of Syrian refugees. These three things are all connected. While the administration and the U.S. are taking steps, you know, writing a big check to humanitarian aid or working with the Kurds in Iraq and northern Syria, we're doing a series of things. There hasn't been an articulated strategy that really brings these three crises together and suggests a direction for dealing with it. And then that leads to all this back and forth, and somebody says we have intel and somebody says we don't. That's what an authorization debate would give us, Andrea. It would force the White House to articulate a strategy. It would subject their witnesses to painful cross-examination from members of Congress to make sure the strategy makes sense. It would lead to a debate and a vote that educates the American public. An authorization debate will force that strategy to come together, and that's what we need to do.
Did we underestimate ISIS? Did we know all along that they could attack a major Western capital like Paris?
To me, it wasn't a surprise. I mean, I'm not on the Intel Committee, so I don't see every intel that an Intel Committee person would, but I'm on Armed Services and Foreign Relations. That ISIL would want to conduct such an attack and have the capacity, I'm not surprised at all. And actually, paradoxically, Andrea, these kinds of attacks might become more likely to the extent that they see themselves losing ground on the battlefield. Last week was also a week where the coalition made gains in Sinjar in northern Iraq, made gains against Raqqa, cut off key ISIL supply lines in the main battle space. as ISIL feels like it's getting hammered on the battle space, they're likely to do things like this to try to sort of distract attention from battlefield losses. None of that is a surprise to me, and I'm a little bit surprised that administration officials would claim they hadn't contemplated this.
Senator Tim Kaine, thank you very much, sir.